The human was dragged through the long hall of black stone. Chains clinked around his wrists, and alien guards with heavy claws pushed him forward. The air was thick with heat and the smell of burning oils. Tall pillars rose like jagged teeth, and banners of a strange crest hung down from above. It was the throne hall of the Drilathi Empire, feared across the stars. Ethan Cole, explorer of Earth, stood out like a small flame in a storm. His clothing was torn from his capture, his face bruised, but his eyes were steady. He did not look down at the ground, though every guard wanted him to. He looked straight ahead as if he already knew who was waiting for him. At the end of the hall stood the throne. It was made of living bone and black iron, rising high so that anyone before it would feel small. Upon it sat Queen Zira of the Drilathi. She was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Her body was covered in scales the color of obsidian. Her eyes were sharp slits of burning gold. Her claws curled over the arms of the throne, and her tall crown was shaped from the horns of ancient beasts. To her people she was perfect. To outsiders she was terrifying. The court of nobles and warriors lined both sides of the hall. They whispered in low growls, eager to see the human beg for his life. For them, humans were frail creatures unworthy of standing before their queen. The guards shoved Ethan to his knees. "Human," the herald announced in a booming voice, "you are brought before Her Majesty, Queen Zira of the Drilathi. You will answer her questions and accept her judgment." The hall grew silent. The queen leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes fixed on him. "So," she said, her voice like thunder over stone, "this is the creature who dared to trespass in my hunting grounds." Ethan's lips curved in a faint smile. "Explorer, not trespasser," he corrected, though his voice was soft. Gasps filled the hall. No one ever corrected the queen. Zira narrowed her eyes, studying him. His calmness was unusual. Most captives trembled, cried, or begged. This one only looked at her as if she were no different from any other being. "Do you not fear me?" she asked. Ethan tilted his head. "Should I?" The court broke into angry hisses. One warrior shouted, "Show him your true form, my queen. Let him see terror before his end." But Zira raised a claw and silenced them. She wanted to hear more from this strange human. "You look at me as if I am one of your kind," she said. "But you see the truth, do you not? My claws, my fangs, my scales. To humans I must appear hideous." Ethan's smile did not fade. His eyes, though tired, carried warmth. He looked at her with a calm that unsettled even her. "You are beautiful," he said simply. The hall erupted in chaos. Warriors roared with laughter, others shouted in rage. "He mocks you, Majesty," one cried. "Crush him where he kneels," another demanded. But Zira did not speak right away. She stared at him in silence, her claws tapping against the arm of her throne. No one had ever spoken such words to her. Not like this, not from a place of calm truth. "Beautiful?" she repeated at last, her voice low. "Human, your kind calls rivers and skies beautiful. You call flowers and stars beautiful. I am not those things. I am a beast of war. My people see strength, not beauty." Ethan shrugged slightly, though the chains made the motion heavy. "Strength can be beautiful too. Survival, courage, the way you hold yourself. It tells a story. Maybe you don't see it, but I do." The queen's golden eyes flashed with something she did not understand. Confusion, perhaps. Or maybe a feeling she had buried long ago. The court, however, was outraged. Warriors struck their spears against the ground, demanding his execution. The herald raised his voice above the noise. "Majesty, this human plays with words. He dares to insult our customs. End his life before he poisons the court with lies." But Zira lifted her claw again. The hall fell silent. She rose from her throne and stepped forward. Her tall frame cast a shadow over Ethan as she descended the steps. The sound of her scales moving against each other was like armor shifting. She stopped only a few steps away from him. Her shadow covered him completely, and still he did not bow his head. "Tell me, human," she said in a low growl. "Do you believe your words, or are they tricks meant to save your life?" Ethan looked up into her golden eyes. There was no fear in his own. Only honesty. "I believe every word," he said. The silence in the hall was heavier than stone. For the first time in years, Queen Zira did not know what to say. She searched his face, expecting to find mockery or lies, but found none. She only saw a strange steadiness, a strange warmth. Her people could not understand it. To them, beauty was not a word for their queen. She was a weapon, a conqueror, a ruler of fear. Yet this human looked at her as if she were something more. Zira turned away sharply and returned to her throne. The court watched in confusion, waiting for her to crush him with a single order. Instead, she sat tall and gave a command none expected. "Keep him alive," she said. "He amuses me." The hall exploded with protest, but the queen silenced them with a glare. No one dared to defy her word. The guards dragged Ethan away, but he did not resist. As he was pulled through the hall, he glanced back once. Their eyes met for a brief moment. He gave her one last smile before the doors closed behind him. The court whispered in disbelief. The queen sat silently on her throne, her golden eyes fixed on the empty space where the human had stood. For reasons she could not explain, the word he spoke echoed in her mind. Beautiful. For the first time in her reign, Queen Zira wondered if there was something her people had never seen, and for the first time, she was curious. Ethan Cole was no stranger to danger. Being captured by the Drelathi was a new kind of test, one he had to survive without losing himself. He had expected fear, yelling, and pain, yet what surprised him most was the quiet interest in Queen Zira's eyes. She was different from the others. While her warriors were rigid, harsh, and full of scorn, Zira had a curiosity he had never seen in any alien leader before. His first days in captivity were strange. He was kept in a cell carved from black stone, lit by faint green lamps that pulsed like slow heartbeats. The air smelled of iron and dust. His chains were heavy, but they were not cruelly tight. It was clear he was meant to be studied, not tortured. Yet every day Zira herself came to him. She wanted answers. Not about his homeworld, not about his weapons, not about Earth's defenses. She wanted to understand him. "Human," she said one day, leaning against the bars of his cell. "Why do you call me beautiful? I am nothing like your kind. My scales are rough, my claws deadly. I have scars from battles, my fangs can tear a man in two. Why would you use such a word for me?" Ethan looked at her and smiled softly. "Beauty is more than what the eyes see," he said. "It is courage. It is the story someone carries in their body and in their soul. Even your scars tell stories. They speak of survival, of battles you have faced and won." Zira tilted her head. No human had ever spoken this way. Usually they begged or cowered. She had expected fear or lies, but he spoke truthfully, with confidence and calm. "You speak in riddles," she said. "Perhaps this is a trick. My people say humans are clever, but always deceitful. Are you trying to manipulate me?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't trick. I only speak honestly. You asked me a question," I answered. For a moment, Zira did not move. She studied his face, looking for any sign of falsehood. There was none. The calm in his eyes was unsettling. Over the next several days, their conversations became a routine. Zira would ask about Earth, about his people, about why humans faced impossible odds without fear. Ethan would answer with stories, not of war, but of courage, of small kindnesses, of humans surviving when all hope seemed lost. At first, Zira found these stories strange. "Your people are weak," she would say. "How can fragile humans survive in the galaxy?" "Because we are clever," Ethan said. "Because we care. Because we never give up even when we fall. We stand again and again. And sometimes that is stronger than claws or scales or weapons." Zira did not respond at first. She was used to strength measured in victories, in battles, in fear. Ethan spoke of strength she had never considered. Inner strength, courage that came from spirit, not muscle. Some of the Drelathi guards began to notice. They had watched humans die quickly in previous conflicts, but this human did not break. He laughed at small jokes, even in chains. He treated the guards politely, offering water or simple advice. A few guards whispered among themselves, quietly admiring him. One evening, Zira came to the cell alone. The hall outside was silent, dark, and filled with shadows. She leaned against the bars, studying him. "You are strange, human," she said. "You do not fear death, yet you do not seek it. You smile when others would cry. You speak to me as if I am more than my form." "Why?" Ethan paused. He looked around the small, dim cell. "Because I see who you really are," he said simply. "Not the scales, the claws, the fangs. I see your courage, your mind, your choices. That is beauty. That is strength. You hide it under fear and power, but it is there." Zira's golden eyes narrowed. She did not fully understand him. Yet a strange warmth spread in her chest. For the first time, she felt seen. Not as a queen, not as a weapon, but as someone with purpose and story. Over the next few days, something unexpected happened. The queen began testing him. not with fear or pain, but with questions that required thought, wisdom, and honesty. She asked him what he would do in her place, how he would lead her people, how he would face enemies stronger. The Drelathi Empire was not accustomed to weakness, and it certainly did not tolerate unpredictability. Yet in the weeks that followed Ethan Cole's capture, the unexpected had begun to take root. Queen Zyra, ruler of countless star systems, found herself intrigued by the humans' calm, clever ways. Her curiosity had grown into a quiet fascination, one that no advisor or warrior could understand. Ethan had earned a small freedom inside the palace. He could move within the inner halls under guard, speak with select courtiers, and occasionally train in minor tactics with the soldiers, though they did not fully trust him. His presence was a constant puzzle to the Drelathi. How could such a fragile creature hold himself with confidence in the heart of their empire? One evening, as Zyra watched from her private balcony, a whisper of trouble reached her ears. One of the junior guards, a young Drelathi named Varric, stumbled to her chambers with wide eyes and trembling claws. "Majesty," he hissed, "there are whispers in the barracks. Some warriors do not accept the human's presence. They say he weakens the queen's mind. A small faction is plotting to—" He trailed off, his fear evident. Zyra's golden eyes narrowed. She had sensed this tension growing for days, but hearing it confirmed her suspicion. Some of her own people viewed Ethan as a threat, not an ally. "Gather the council tonight," she said. "I will hear their arguments before any rash action is taken." The council met in the throne hall, a cavernous room lit by greenish fire. Every member's eyes were sharp with suspicion, their claws tapping in anger. "Majesty," one elder began, "the human must be removed. He is dangerous. No outsider should ever influence the queen. He is fragile, and yet he walks as if he owns the palace. He has poisoned your mind." Zyra stood tall. "He has not poisoned my mind," she said evenly. "He has shown me a perspective I have never considered. That is not weakness, it is strength." Another counselor growled. "Strength? He has no claws, no scales, no fangs. What strength can he have against our enemies? Against the Galactic Council? Against traitors?" Zyra's eyes flashed gold. "Strength is not only in battle," she said. "Do not forget that a ruler wins with both mind and courage. That human speaks the truth in ways you refuse to see." "I will not harm him, not now, not ever." The council fell silent. Some whispered, some growled, others simply bowed their heads in frustration. None dared defy her word. Later that night, Ethan was brought to her chambers. Zyra's towering figure stood by the doorway, arms crossed, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "You see now," she said, her voice low, "that some of my people will not accept you. They think you dangerous." Ethan shrugged. "I expected as much. Humans are always the outsiders, even among friends." Zyra studied him, intrigued by his composure. "Why do you not fear them? Even I am uncertain at times." "Fear is only useful if it teaches something," he repeated. "If it only makes you freeze, then it is wasted. They fear me because they cannot understand me. That does not change who I am." For the first time, Zyra smiled, though faintly. She had never met anyone who saw the world so clearly, yet with such calm. The next days were tense. Rebellious whispers in the barracks grew louder. Ethan noticed small groups of warriors observing him, their claws flexing, ready for a fight. He did not flinch. Instead, he moved among them, speaking quietly, using his words to calm, reason, and sometimes joke. A few of the younger warriors began to respect him, though most elders remained suspicious. One afternoon, a violent demonstration broke out. A group of discontented soldiers attacked a supply caravan. Ethan happened to be nearby, inspecting a storage chamber with Varric. He saw the chaos unfolding, shouts, the clash of metal claws, and sparks from energy weapons. Without hesitation, he sprang into action. "Step back," he shouted to the young guards. "Do not attack blindly. Watch, plan, then act." The soldiers paused, confused by the calm command. Ethan moved among them, giving clear directions, helping the weaker Drelathi find safety, while pointing out openings for those who wanted to stop the attackers. When Queen Zyra arrived with her personal guard, she found a surprising sight. Ethan stood at the center of the chaos, unarmed, guiding the soldiers and protecting civilians. His courage amazed her. He did not strike a single blow, yet his presence controlled the battlefield. After the skirmish ended, she approached him. Her massive shadow fell over him, yet he did not flinch. "You did not fight," she said, astonished. You could have been killed. Ethan looked up at her calmly. Sometimes fighting is not the best way. People respect courage in the heart more than claws or fangs. Today I only guided them. That is enough. Zyra's chest felt tight. She realized that this human, who should have been terrified, was teaching her something she had never learned in her long life of war. She found herself wondering if humans truly had a kind of power the Drilathi could never measure. That night, in private, she finally spoke the question that had haunted her since his arrival. Human, she said softly, why do you call me beautiful? Even after seeing my form, my claws, my scars, you still say it. Do you lie to me or do you truly mean it? Ethan smiled gently, sitting near a small fire in her chamber. I mean it, he said. Beauty is not what the eyes see alone. It is courage. It is the choices you make. It is the strength to face what others fear. I see that in you, Zyra. Not your claws, not your scales, not your throne, but you. The choices you make. That is beautiful. Zyra blinked. No one had ever spoken to her this way. No one had ever seen her. Not as queen, not as warrior, but as a being who carried her own stories. She felt something she could not name. Perhaps respect. Perhaps awe. Perhaps something more. The next morning, tensions grew again. A faction of the council had decided that Ethan's presence was too dangerous. They sent a group of assassins under the cover of night to kill him. They underestimated Zyra. The attack began in the shadowed halls of the palace. Guards shouted as the assassins struck from the darkness. Ethan, awake from his brief rest, was immediately aware. He moved calmly, ducking and dodging, guiding the young guards toward safety. Suddenly, Zyra appeared, her claws flashing, her roar echoing through the halls. She struck down the attackers with swift precision, her movements deadly and elegant. But what startled everyone was her hesitation before striking Ethan. She held back. She could have ended him in a heartbeat, but she did not. Ethan looked at her calmly. I did not fear them, he said softly, because I know you are here. That is all I need. For the first time, Zyra realized she did not only protect him because he amused her. She protected him because she wanted to. The feeling was strange, even terrifying. She had always ruled with power and fear, never with something like affection. The rebellion was stopped that night, yet the seeds of change had taken root in the palace. Some warriors began to murmur that the human might not be weak. Others continued to plot, refusing to understand him. And in the middle of it all, Queen Zyra's curiosity and fascination grew stronger. In the quiet hours, when the palace slept and only the distant stars could be seen through the high windows, Zyra returned to the human. You survive, she said. Almost a statement, not a question. Ethan smiled. I survive because I choose to. Fear is not my master. I face what comes and I keep standing. Zyra studied him in silence. There was truth in his words and a strength she could not deny. She realized that humans, despite their fragile forms, carried courage unlike anything in the Drilathi Empire. Perhaps that courage was the reason he called her beautiful. Perhaps it was more than that. Perhaps it was the truth she had longed to hear. And so, in the shadows of the Drilathi Palace, a strange bond formed between queen and captive. It was not yet friendship, not yet trust, but something powerful, a connection that could not be ignored. The palace was quiet, yet full of whispers. Change was coming, and at the center of it, a human smiled calmly, seeing the beauty not in scales or claws, but in the heart of a queen. The stars above the Drilathi homeworld burned cold and silent, but the tension on the planet below was far from peaceful. Rumors of the humans' influence over Queen Zyra had spread like wildfire. The Council of Elders whispered in fear, and many warriors openly complained. Yet the real danger was not internal. It came from beyond. A massive fleet of ships had appeared in orbit, their engines blazing with authority. The Galactic Council, the most powerful governing force in the nearby star systems, demanded action. A single message came to the Drilathi. Hand over the human or face total destruction. Zyra stood on her balcony, golden eyes fixed on the Council's ships. The sight of thousands of vessels glinting with metal and fire would have caused most beings to tremble. But she did not. Not because she was fearless, but because she now saw things differently. Ethan was beside her, unchained, watching the fleet with calm curiosity. They think they can intimidate you, he said quietly. But you are stronger than they imagine. Zyra's voice was steady, but her mind raced. They threaten to burn my world if I do not surrender you. Every choice I make now could cost millions of lives. Ethan nodded. Then make the choice that is right, not the one they demand. Fear is not a ruler's guide. She turned to him, studying the human closely. His calm presence was like a lantern in the darkness, giving her strength she had not known she could feel. For centuries, she had relied on intimidation and power. Now, a human, so small, so fragile. The Drelathi Palace was alive with tension. Even though the Galactic Council had withdrawn some of its ships after their initial attack, the threat remained. Spies, whispers, and secret plots moved through the corridors like shadowed serpents. For the first time in centuries, Queen Zyra felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her shoulders. Ethan Cole, the human who had already changed her mind and her empire, walked beside her through the halls. He had become a silent presence, calm, observant, and steady. No one dared to look directly at him, but many whispered in awe. The Queen's trust in him was clear. "Something is wrong," Ethan said quietly, his sharp eyes scanning the hall. "I can feel it. Not from the council, but from inside. Your people are divided, and someone plans to use that against you." Syrah's golden eyes narrowed. "You are correct. I sense it too. A faction of my council has already started moving. They will act tonight if I do not decide first." That evening, as the twin moons rose over the jagged mountains of the Drelathi capital, a group of armed counselors slipped through the shadows. Their plan was simple: assassinate Ethan and seize the palace. They believed that without him, Zyra would falter, and the Empire would return to obedience to the Galactic Council. The first strike came at the servants' quarters. Ethan, awake and ever vigilant, noticed the movement immediately. He did not panic. Instead, he moved swiftly, quietly alerting the palace guards and preparing a strategy. When the attackers reached the inner halls, they were met with a surprise. Zyra appeared at the head of the corridor, towering and deadly. Her claws caught the dim light as she advanced. The attackers faltered. They had expected to find a human alone, fragile and terrified. Instead, they found the Queen herself, her golden eyes blazing with fury. Ethan moved forward, calmly guiding the young guards. "Stay together. Protect the civilians. Do not waste strength on anger," he instructed. Zyra struck first. Her movements were fast, precise, and terrifying. In one motion, she disarmed 2 attackers, sending them sprawling across the floor. Her roar shook the hall, echoing off stone walls and filling the attackers with dread. Yet she did not strike Ethan once. She stopped him from moving into danger, using her massive frame to shield him from harm. For the first time, she realized why she trusted him, not because he was strong or clever, but because he inspired her to act with calm confidence rather than panic. As the battle raged through the corridors, Ethan's human ingenuity proved invaluable. He guided the guards to block exits, cover the injured, and anticipate the attackers' movements. His instructions were simple, clear, and effective. The Drelathi soldiers followed without question, amazed by the calm clarity of a being they had considered weak. Finally, the attackers were cornered in the Grand Hall. Zyra's voice rang out. "Surrender now or face judgment!" The faction hesitated. They had never seen such coordination, such strength combined with calm. Slowly, one by one, they dropped their weapons. Zyra's golden eyes softened slightly as she looked at them. "You have a choice," she said. "Your loyalty is to your people, not to fear or greed. Choose wisely." Ethan stepped forward, meeting Zyra's gaze. "They will listen because they know fear alone cannot guide them. Your strength is not in claws, but in heart. You lead with courage, and that inspires even those who doubt." The attackers lowered their heads in submission. For now, the rebellion had been stopped. But the danger was far from over. Zyra knew the Galactic Council would not forget this display. They would return stronger and more prepared. Later, in the quiet of her private chambers, Zyra spoke to Ethan alone. "You saved lives tonight, not with weapons, but with your mind. Why do you stay so calm in the face of death?" Ethan looked at her, unafraid. "Because I choose to. Fear is useful only if it teaches you something. Otherwise, it only stops you. I have faced impossible odds before, and I have survived. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it." Zyra studied him closely. "I have lived for centuries, commanding armies and conquering worlds. I have relied on fear and power alone, but you teach me something I never knew. Something that feels right." Ethan smiled. "Then you see it. Leadership is not only about strength. It is about courage, vision, and trust. You are strong because you stand for what is right, even when the odds are against you. That is real power." Her golden eyes softened. She realized that his words were more than wisdom. They were a reflection of what she wanted to be. She had ruled with fear and intimidation for so long that she had forgotten the power of courage, the value of trust, and the strength of heart. Days passed, and the Drelathi palace returned to a tense normalcy. Guards patrolled with sharper eyes, counselors whispered cautiously, and the Empire waited for the council's next move. Yet something had shifted. The human had changed not only the queen but the soldiers and advisors as well. Even some of the doubters had begun to admire him, if silently. Zira spent hours with Ethan, not as queen to captive, but as a leader seeking insight. He advised her on tactics, strategy, and the psychology of her people. His calm presence inspired confidence, even when fear threatened to take hold. One morning, the queen gathered the council once again. "The human will remain under my protection," she declared. "Any who plot against him will face judgment. I rule my empire. Not fear, not threats. I will not surrender what is right for what is easy." The council murmured in anger, but none dared oppose her. Zyra's resolve, strengthened by Ethan's calm wisdom, was unbreakable. The empire would follow her whether they liked it or not. That night, as the twin moons rose, Ethan and Zyra walked together through the palace gardens. The air was cool and the stars reflected in the black pools of water. "You have changed much in my empire," Zyra said softly. "My people, even I, see things differently because of you." Ethan smiled. "I only show what is already there. Courage, strength, and the will to act are inside everyone. I just remind them and you of it." Zyra paused, watching him. "Why do you call me beautiful even when you see my scars, my claws, my armor? Why do you not see me as a monster?" Ethan looked at her calmly, his eyes warm. "Because beauty is not only what the eyes see. It is the courage to stand, the choices you make, and the strength in your heart. I see you, Zyra. Not your scales, not your claws, not your throne. I see you." For the first time, the queen allowed herself to believe it. She allowed herself to see the truth in his words. And she felt something she had not felt in centuries. A strange, growing trust not only in him but in the courage he inspired. The following days brought calm before the storm. Scouts reported the council's fleet regrouping, preparing for another assault. Zyra's inner circle worked tirelessly, planning defenses and strategies. And through it all, Ethan remained by her side, calm and steady, a human presence that no alien could ignore. In the quiet moments, Zyra realized that her choice to protect him had changed everything. Not only had it saved lives, it had reminded her of something she had almost forgotten: courage, trust, and the power of heart. And as the shadows of war stretched across the stars, Zyra knew that the next challenge would not only test her empire but the bond she shared with the human who had changed her view of everything. She would face it, not with fear, but with courage. Not with claws, but with heart, and Ethan would be by her side. The galaxy did not yet know it, but a queen and a human together could change the course of history. The stars above the Drelathi homeworld were aflame with light, the glow of thousands of starships converging on the planet. The Galactic Council had returned, their fleet larger, stronger, and more organized than before. They expected a swift victory, confident that the Drelathi Queen would crumble under pressure. They had not counted on the human who had changed everything. Queen Zyra stood at the command center, her golden eyes scanning the battlefield. Around her, soldiers moved with precision, following her orders. But this time they also moved with confidence. Confidence inspired by Ethan Cole. "Human," Zyra said quietly, her voice steady. "This is the final test. If we fail, the Empire falls. If we succeed, we change history." Ethan nodded calmly, his gaze fixed on the fleet beyond. "Then we will succeed," he said. "Not because of fear or power, but because of courage, strategy, and trust. You lead with heart, and that makes you stronger than they imagine." The Council's fleet advanced, energy weapons charging, engines blazing. Their warships were massive, each capable of destroying entire cities with a single strike. Yet Zyra and Ethan did not falter. They had a plan that combined Drelathi strength with human ingenuity. "Use the asteroid belt," Ethan instructed. "Divide their attention. Force them to scatter. Their numbers are overwhelming, but their focus is not perfect. Exploit it," Zyra nodded. Her fighters surged forward, weaving through the asteroids with deadly precision. Claws flexed over controls. Energy weapons fired with accuracy, and the Council's ships struggled to keep up. The battle was fierce, but every movement was calculated, every action deliberate. Inside the palace, the counselors who had once plotted against Ethan now watched in awe. The human strategies, combined with Zyra's leadership, turned the tide of the battle. Fear was replaced with hope, hesitation with action. Even the youngest soldiers who had doubted their queen now followed with confidence. Ethan moved Amo in posts, guiding pilots Kur,